Happy Monday, guys. We are starting a new chapter. We are starting chapter 13. It is on two variable relationships. So throughout this chapter, we will learn kind of what that means, what the two variables can be, what different types of relationships that they can have. So the first section that we are getting into today is called Related Quantities. So the two keywords that we're going to talk about today that you guys will see are called independent and dependent variables. So looking back at the chapter title with two variable relationships, that's kind of the starting point of what we're going to talk about is independent and dependent. So looking at this first example, or kind of the opening scenario, it's going to give you a scenario and then kind of explain what those two new vocabulary words are. So it says, suppose a plane travels 2,000 miles in 3.5 hours. Identify the two variables in this situation. Which variable depends on the other? So those are the questions that you're going to see in the scenarios that you're going to see. So throughout the examples in your homework, you guys will be asked to not only determine the answer to the question in some cases, but also tell the independent and the dependent variable. So it's important that you guys understand which one is which. So we're going to go through several examples together. So for this first examples, the two quantities described are time and distance. So the distance being the 2,000 miles, the time being the 3.5 hours. So you can assign variables to represent quantities, so using T for time and D for distance. And this isn't going to be in every single case. You will understand once we get more into this chapter why letters are represented with those. So then looking at the next statement, it says sometimes one of the quantities in a relationship depends on the other. In this example, the distance traveled depends on the total flying time. So D depends on T. So in this case, if you think about this scenario, if I travel 3.5 hours, I can travel 2,000 miles. But let's say I only travel for 2 hours. The amount of miles is going to change based on the number of hours or the total minutes that I'm flying. So in this case, the time is my independent variable, and then my distance is the dependent. So if you look at the definition of a dependent variable, on here it says the dependent variable changes in response to the independent variable. So another way to think of this is the dependent variable depends on the independent one. So in this example, I could say that the time or the distance that I'm traveling, so the 2,000 miles, depends on how long I'm flying or driving. So in this case, the distance in which I go depends upon the amount of time that I'm flying. So we are going to do some other examples. I know this can be confusing. It's really easy to mix them up. So we're going to look at several examples of this. So looking at this one, it says a plane ticket costs $345. What is the total cost of 8 tickets? What is the independent variable and what is the dependent variable? So the two quantities in this situation are the number of tickets and then the total cost. So another way to look at this is my total cost is going to depend on the number of tickets that I purchase. So my independent variable is the number of tickets that I'm going to purchase, and then my dependent variable is my total cost. My total cost depends upon how many tickets I'm buying. So my total cost, if I'm buying one ticket, would be $345. But let's say my number of tickets is 2. then I would be paying $690. So my total cost is going to change based on the number of tickets changing. So my dependent variable, or my total cost, depends on the number of tickets that I'm buying. If you think about it the other way around, and you accidentally flip it around and say your independent variable is the total cost and your dependent variable is the number of tickets, my number of tickets doesn't depend upon my total cost, because I'm not focused on the total cost in that scenario. So my number of tickets that I'm getting doesn't depend upon my final result. My final result, my total, depends upon the number of tickets that I'm going to buy. Okay, so we're going to go through 3 more examples. In the next 3 examples, you're going to ask you to find independent, dependent, and then also the answer. Your homework has that same setup in it, where it will ask you to not only find independent and dependent, but also answer the questions. And your homework is, I believe, only 6 questions. So make sure you're doing all the parts of it, writing the independent, the dependent, and the answer. So you should have 3 parts to your homework. So looking at this first example, again, answer independent, dependent, and then the actual question. So it says Oliver reads 31 pages in an hour. How many pages will he read in 7 days? In a 7-day week, if he reads 1 hour every night. Okay, so first of all, I need to find my independent, my dependent, and then in this case, the number of pages that he reads in a week. So however you want to start with this, if you want to answer the question first and then go back and do independent and dependent, that's fine. Or if you want to look at the variables first and then solve it, that's fine too. It doesn't matter in which order you solve it. Your answer to the actual question isn't going to change based on the independent or the dependent variable. So in this scenario, I'm going to go ahead and answer the math part first. So I have pages in a week. He reads 31 pages in an hour, and he's reading 7 days, 1 hour each day. So I'm just going to multiply this. So 7 times 1 is 7, and then 3 times 7 is 21. So he would read 217 pages in 1 week. So that would be the answer to that first, or one of the parts of this question. So my dependent variable, okay, depends upon my independent variable. So in this case, the pages in a week is kind of a clue to you. So in this scenario, your dependent variable would be the total pages read. So the number of pages that he reads depends upon how many hours he reads. So in this part down here, think about what numbers you were multiplying together to find that answer. So you were using the number of pages that he read in an hour, and then how long he read. So my answer to that question is the total number of pages that he read. That depended upon how many hours he read. So that was the number that I multiplied by. I multiplied by 7 because he read 7 hours. So had he read 8 hours, that would then change my answer to the pages in a week. So, and then it would then change my total number of pages read. So my independent variable could change, and based on that changing, my dependent variable is going to change. So if your independent variable changes, your dependent variable is also going to change. So that's one way to think about it. Your dependent is kind of your end result, if you want to think about it that way. So looking at example 2, let's go ahead and clear this. So example 2 says Grace charges $9.50 for each necklace she makes. How much will she earn if she sells 9 necklaces? So again, we can go ahead and do that part first. So she charges $9.50 per necklace and she sells 9 of them. So I'm going to multiply those together. 9 times 0 is 0, and then 9 times 5 is 45, and then 9 times 9 is 81, plus 4 is going to give me 85. And I had 2 numbers behind the decimal up here, so I need 2 down here. So this answer would be $85.50. The decimal's kind of hard to see right there, but that's how much she would earn if she sold 9 necklaces. So going back and looking at my independent and my dependent variable, so my question has how much she charges for each, and then it's saying if she sells 9, how much will she earn? So my dependent variable in this situation is going to be how much she earns. So the amount that she earns depends upon the number that she sells. So again, had I changed the 9 necklaces, let's say she sold 10 necklaces, then she would have made $99 or $95. If she sold 2 necklaces, she would have made $20. So the total amount that she earns depends upon how many that she sells. You guys can put yourself in this situation if you're selling something or you're working on something. If you make money off of something, how much you make depends upon how much you sell. If you guys have ever cut grass before to earn money, or if you do chores and you earn money that way, the amount of money that you get depends upon how many yards you cut, how many things around the house that you did. So think about it in that way. Your dependent variable depends upon what you're doing or what she sold. Okay, so looking at this last example, so it says Nate sells his paintings for $250 each. How much does Nate earn if he sells 3 paintings? Sorry, that should say if. And then I need my independent, my dependent, and then to answer the actual question. So I'm going to choose to answer the question first. So they're $250 each, and he sells 3 of them. So 3 times 0 is 0. 5 times 3 is 15. And then 3 times 2 is 6. Plus 1 is going to give me 7. So he makes $750. So in this one, similar to the last one, the dependent variable is his earnings. So how much he earns based upon the number of paintings he sells. So I'm just going to put number he sells. So when you guys are doing this on your homework, you don't have to write out the entire scenario. So you don't need to write the dependent variable is how much Nate earns. You can just put Nate's earnings, or he earns, or just earns. And then independent, you don't need to write like how many paintings he sells. I know you guys have limited space on your homework to write all of this out. If you want to abbreviate independent with I and dependent with D, that's fine, just for your homework so I can quickly see it. So this is all you guys are doing today, is getting a scenario, answering it. Most of them are multiplication. Some of them may be division, but most of the ones that I have seen have been multiplying. And then your dependent variable and your independent variable. So remember, dependent depends upon your independent. What you earn or your total depends upon how much you're selling, what you're doing. kind of your starting point and your ending point. So think about it that way. If you guys have questions, please let me know. I will be more than happy to answer them. And I hope you guys have a great Monday and a great rest of the week. I will see you tomorrow.